Today, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go through all of the Overworld suggestions in the ideas section of the Illuvium Discord, and I'm just going to like talk about all the different ideas, go through them one by one, explain if I do or don't like them. I'm going to try and keep each one a little bit concise because there's quite a bit here to get through, but I think it's going to be really good. Anyone who's not keeping up with all the different suggestions and ideas for the Overworld, this is going to be a great way for you to get to know everyone in the Discord, not to mention every idea in the Discord. So let's jump straight into it. The first one I'm going to look at, I'm going from when the Overworld dropped. There's obviously game ideas before that, but I'm going to go from when Overworld dropped, or the beta for Overworld, right? And the first one here is from Most Wanted Noobs TV, and it's titled Illuvium Battle Forge. What he says is that imagine Illuvium MOBA, right? That's the key aspect of it. But all of the items in the game can only be crafted through the Overworld. These items expire every season, and all the money used in crafting these MOBA items goes to a prize pool to be shared by rank, but the amount is not so crazy from top to bottom rank. So the items expire every season. That's a bit interesting. Then all the money used goes to crafting these MOBA items, goes to the prize pool. So I don't know why they're expiring at all, to be quite frank. I do like the idea of crafting items in the Overworld that then is applied to a MOBA style game. It does make things a bit tricky because you need to buy those items over the course of the game, and that's part of the strategy of the gameplay. But if you start messing around with the genre and taking it further, I definitely think this has some real merit to it. So I don't know why they need to expire and reset, but I think it's an interesting idea in itself. I really like this one. I like the idea of linking the Overworld to the MOBA in some way, and I feel like that will be really important. And it won't necessarily be through alluvials. I think that's a really good point there. I think alluvials would be great, but adding in other things is always a bonus for sure. Let's jump in the next one. So I'm just looking at the game idea tag ones here. There's probably more ideas than this. There's lots of other ones. So a new mobile turn-based RPG game idea. So turn-based RPG is one of the biggest genre. I'm not sure exactly what this is referring to. Maybe things like Raid Shadow Legends. Has more similarities with the auto battler since most mobile RPGs have auto battle. Yeah, that makes sense. So kind of like Raid. PvE grind sort of stuff. The team can pull off an Illuvium version of Summoner's War. That's the example they're using. Then the game can pull in a lot more revenue. Yeah. So a gacha mobile game, Illuvium Zero isn't really filling that gacha mobile game niche. So this one's by Crix. Illuvium Zero isn't really filling that gacha game niche. Illuvium Overworld is hoping to achieve that, but gacha is a lot stronger in the mobile genre. Once Illuvium Overworld goes to mobile, I think it will fill a lot of this. But having another game on top that's purely hardcore gacha grind fest sort of stuff would bode really well for revenue for Illuvium. There's no one denying that. So I think it'd be great. I don't know how you would do it and keep the same standard and quality. I feel like that would be important, but they're supposed to feel arcadey and simple and colorful as well. So mixing the two might be a bit interesting. So let's move on to the next one. NPC gym battles for each region. I'm not going to read all this. He suggests a lot of interesting ideas to do with the NPC battle system. I think there's an obvious idea here where they're kind of like Pokemon gyms where you go in and you battle this Pokemon gym, you battle this Illuvium gym leader, and then it enables you to go to different regions and things like that. Could make it feel more alive. They're sitting around the world. No one's disagreeing with that. Every ranger has a set deck. That would be really interesting. The rewards could be materials or even an increase in energy, so could stay in the world a bit longer. I really, really like that idea. So I'm going to ignore some of the other stuff. Unfortunately, sorry about that. CTEJ3P. But I think that's a really, really novel idea where you can get rewards from it, but more importantly, you get more energy. So if you go in and if you have a team tough enough to beat this ranger, then you can get all this energy boost to make your run last longer. I feel like it gets really interesting where if you're in like Crimson Wastes, for example, with a lot of fire alluvials, but the ranger is the opposite. So you've brought all your water alluvials to take on the fire alluvials in the area, but the NPC ranger is full of nature or air or whatever and crushes your water team. So you've got to create a really balanced team. And it plays into those dynamics a little bit more. It makes for a better PvE experience in general. And I think that's a really great idea. Alluvial Muse. Wolf Orca sounds a gigantic wolf orca hybrid. That would be sick. All right, I'm not going to say much more on that. That'd be really cool. I'd actually really like to see that. I didn't know that was a thing. All right, let's go to the next one. Soundtrack for the Illuvium Overworld. If I scroll to the top here, Benjamin W is a gamer like us. Also, Meet Sicklesaurus suggested this one. Sorry about that. Benjamin is a gamer like us. The idea is like a soundtrack you can have playing in the background. Actually, I remember reading this one. My understanding from this one is essentially they want the ability to add in soundtracks from like your own soundtracks into the game, so you can go around with your own music and things like that. I'm not sure quite how it would integrate and why you couldn't just use your own sound and mute the game or something like that. But this sort of integration would be particularly interesting for streaming. If you could add in like copyright-free music and things like that, it'd get pretty fascinating. But I don't really know. Apparently, Diablo, FIFA has done this for many years, where you can listen to different kinds of music depending on the mood. If there was an internal Illuvium soundtrack that you could switch up between freely, that'd be really, really cool. My favorite instance of something like this was probably Fallout 4, where you had the radio and you could switch up whatever radio station was playing while you were playing the game. I thought that was actually one of my favorite parts of Fallout 4, to be honest. That's probably a bit weird for me to say, but it was. New alluvial inspiration. We've got another one. I love this. Oh, I remember seeing this one. It's the Jacana, where it has chicks under its wings. People were suggesting it be like a brood lord from StarCraft 2 or like a carrier or something like that, where basically it sends out lots of smaller alluvials to do its bidding for it, and when they die, it can't really do anything. I think it'd be a really neat idea. The alluvials are already pretty wacky enough. This is starting to get a bit crazier. Spider IP, we voted on that. Obviously, Spider Alluvial would be really great for the game as a whole. I'm scared of spiders, but we'll not go into that today. So Bryce Dice talks about interoperable NFTs. Doesn't make sense to me. Every game we have to make 150 custom NFTs. Oh, right. Make for that game. So what if they did it all by set and affinity, where first set water alluvial gets a blue water spaghetti, there's a fire spaghetti, earth spaghetti. They could just make a purple Honda. So it's talking about the interoperability between the alluvials themselves being the core assets in Illuvium, and making sure that in future games that translates across so that it's less work for the dev team, easy to get the games out, and it's all really consistent. I agree with this to an extent, but there is a lot of money to be made in adding different kinds of NFTs to the collections, but without the studio expanding further or adding outsourcing, all that sort of stuff, I definitely think this sort of method is very primed. But if the studio expands quick enough, I definitely think you take it and you go nuts with it and you try and push the limits of Illuvium and the Illuvium metaverse for sure. So Bryce Dice said that one. This one's from Jet. We could lock alluvials or Mozart into side missions for collecting materials so they're busy while we're away. There have been a few posts like this, so I'll skip over some of the other ones that we see. And there's a lot to discuss on this. My biggest take is basically botting is a big concern for me. If you make things too easy and too passive, then botting becomes a big problem, especially when it's free to play, because you can create as many accounts as you want. Doesn't matter if you have a daily limit, you can create as many accounts as you want and bot the entire system into the ground. So it's definitely really dangerous, but the more creative you get, especially if you tie it into land, I actually really like the ideas that have come out of this where you can tie something like this to land. I really like that concept because you have to have a land NFT and it makes the land game that much better. Promoting and improving the land game is great. Also, your daily runs or whatever are limited to 20k plots. You can't really extend beyond that. So it does have a lot of ways to lock that in, and NFTs are great for that, really. Great for proving ownership and things like that, having a limited supply. Okay, add USDC or stablecoin option for Illuvatars. We actually had a pretty lengthy discussion on this. I believe as they're working, from my understanding, as they're working on the IMX integration and everything, they don't really have even if they could do it, they don't really have the time to integrate USDC. That is because they're spending all of their time trying to get it to work on IMX. IMX is a big part of Illuvatars at this point in time. So adding in USDC would just add so much extra labor. Probably won't be functional. Maybe down the road they'll be able to add this, maybe for future Illuvatars or other things as well. But at the moment, it's going to have to stick with Ethereum, it is what it is. But I think USDC is great just for those who don't have ETH or SRV2, right? And Josh set that one. Okay, this one. PvE stage, leveling stage, low cost. So we are now able to play the incredible overworld, big part, able to harvest, but not use as the leveling. Yes, we're not able to level yet. As community, we don't know yet what the plans about it, and the Illuvium team already thought about it. As a mainstream gamer, depending on the cost of travels, earn a lot of value. Oh, there's a lot here. Give value to time spending. Okay, so essentially what they're talking about is some sort of PvE outside of the overworld where you can level up your alluvials. Now, personally, I have a strong bias towards this sort of stuff because I don't spend heaps of time in my house. So things that I can do on the go on my phone or whatever else directly from the wallet is always great for me. But again, I want to restrict as much of this stuff as I can. Illuvium has such a strong premise because it's a complicated game that you have to actually play to be a part of the economy. And that's something that hasn't really happened much in the past. Even World of Warcraft had lots of ways to earn gold essentially without really participating in the gameplay. And I want to avoid a lot of that, at least to begin with. Down the road, it might make sense to add some of those features in, but I reckon it's extremely dangerous, especially before you have some level of mass adoption, right? So keeping that stuff to the wind a little bit. So that was G4C Mindaya from Hype. Different boards. So I think we touched on this already. No, we haven't touched on this yet. So Ramza says, would love to see some bigger battle boards. Having always that same small square board will get old, even with the beautiful landscapes. If we could have some larger, longer, and with obstacles, that'd be pretty crazy. I never really thought about obstacles. These would be exclusive for PvE Overworld because a different board will always mess with the balance. Yeah, so for PvE Overworld, I think, yeah, I mean, any way to make battles more difficult, I am all for. Even like terrain adjustments and things where on your side you have a couple sections on your board that are like poisoned. And any alluvials you put there are going to get poisoned and things like that. And maybe if it's raining, then the board is raining and things like that. Adjustments to it, especially in the overworld, would be a really, really neat idea. Not necessarily size and dimensions. I would assume that that's difficult for the dev team to do on short notice at least. But yeah, and this leans into skins and stuff as well, of course. Wow, there are a lot of these. All right, speedrunning. Create a game mode with maps designed to challenge the movement mechanics. Create consumables found in the overworld that can be used to enhance the movement. Refresh of our jumping energy mid-flight. That's a really cool idea. Where you like jump up and you hit like a bubble, and then now jetpack's filled up again. You can jump. You can get way more jumps in that way. That'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, the idea of speedrunning, always great. I'm not a huge speedrunner myself. I always kind of wanted to get into it, but it takes a lot of time and patience. But yeah, I think speedrunning levels could be sweet. I like the idea of like an obstacle course. Like you set up all the harvestables and stuff in a specific spot for a specific game mode that everyone goes through and tries to speedrun it, and the winner takes all, right? I think that'd be pretty sweet. I'd be down for that. Experimental arena mode. It allow players to set up custom matches. Okay. Yeah, that's really good. Like custom game mode, not necessarily against other players, but against an AI. I think that's really cool because you can set up some really custom tournaments and things where everyone has to set up the same AI. That's really fascinating. And it'd be great for those trying to learn the new meta of the game. Although I did watch a video recently where people being able to learn the game easier can actually break competitive modes. And I believe they talked a bit about Fortnite, how Fortnite released like a free build mode where you could just build stuff and kind of practice while you're shooting and building all those skills. And apparently the competitive scene just got destroyed. It got absolutely hammered. Everyone all of a sudden was just really, really good. And the gap between good and bad can make a big impact because new players come into the game and getting smashed and then they're leaving instantly, right? So that's a big, big problem. I don't know if something like this would cause that issue. Although currently we already have like a free play in survival mode, so maybe it's not a big stretch, to be honest. That one was by Chorexi. So this one's by Perfy. Another big one. Goddamn. Physical merchandise statues. So essentially what they're talking about here is once you get world first achievements or you capture your first alluvial and things like that, you get the ability to purchase a statue based on your mods and accessories and things like that. I always love ideas like this. This is a lot of work to put together and get out. That is, displays for the Illuvatars are already one big thing in themselves. I would love to see something like this in the future. I think it's a long way down the road, and obviously players would have to pay for it, and they might feel a little bit off. But I like the idea of them getting guaranteed physical merch or physical products or discounts or whatever if they win large tournaments and things like that. I think that has to be a must. The next one's by Crucial, a new overworld item, Holo Charm. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Pokemon, Pokemon has something called Shiny Pokemon. Now, Shiny Pokemon have a 1 in 4,196 chance to appear in the wild. If you have the Shiny Charm, it's 3x that. Now, his stats don't go quite that far. I think it's like 10% boost or something like that. There's a lot in there. I'm not going to read it all. I have read it before though. So it's like a 10% boost. Essentially what he's saying is, I think if you capture everything or if you complete a specific achievement, you can get something called the Holo Charm. And what this would do is allow you just a slightly higher chance at getting holos in the wild when you're fusing and all the rest of it. However you're able to get holos. I'm not exactly sure on the details. I think it's a really neat idea. He does talk about the Holo Charm being an NFT in itself, and you can give it to other people and stuff like that. That starts to get really, really fascinating and in the weeds. Because what you could do is you could capture all 150, give away a Holo Charm, sell one of them, buy one of them, and then get it again, things like that. So you've got to block all of those sorts of things. But I like the idea. One of the proposed discussion pieces was like, it's only active if you have a full collection in your inventory. And selling it is a bit less useful, but you never know. Maybe they can stack. So now you can buy 10 of them. And if you have 150 alluvials, then you can get all that. And there's a lot of ways to delve and go deep into it. It starts to get really interesting. So I do really like the idea, but pulling it off is going to take some work because you cannot ruin the economy with that one. So this one's by Lamoth. Big battles. Have a few boards linked where multiple players work together to fight higher tier boss alluvials to win insane prizes. I've already made a comment on this one. You can see it here. Yeah, I'm all for this. I would really like, as a start, I would really like to see a 2v2 mode where it's just one giant board. Anyone can place it on your side, from your team, from your opponent's team, or even 4 in like a battle royale. I would love to see them mix up the boards this way because it would get absolutely wild, and some of these battles would look insane. It would be some of the best cinematic battles. You thought 1v1 was cool? Imagine getting 4 or 8 players on a single battle board. Now that is something to be, that's just wild. The problem is the meta would look really similar. Like everyone's got like a classic tank, a classic DPS, but like insane. I would love to see something like that. The next one's from Jim Barino, the face of Illuvium, of course. Illuvium private beta skins. Just thought the idea of giving players skins who have captured XMen Illuviums in the overworld might give an incentive. I don't mind that. There's been a lot of talk about this. And I think even Aaron stepped in as I was talking about it and things as well. And the big difference between the land game and the private beta is the access, right? In the overworld private beta, only a certain amount of people have access, and I'm hoping they open out. They're opening it up pretty quickly. But with the land game, only the people that hold land NFTs that have been investors for a long time really have access to that game and trying to get those skins, those blueprints early. So that is the big difference here. We don't really want to be giving handouts to anyone that got lucky enough to get into the private beta, because that would feel really unfair. If it was open to everyone, then I would like to see them do something interesting, but it's not at this point, but you never know, that could change. All right, we're getting through them. Okay, Overworld in-game camera. If the ranger had a camera in her inventory, oh yeah, it's like you take selfies and things, and all the UI disappears and everything. I like the idea of a photo mode, but I don't know if you have to go so far as you have like a camera in your pocket or whatever, and you can share it online and everything. I think everyone can do it themselves. But I definitely like the idea of an in-game album that anyone can go and view and things like that, because the Illuvitar is going to be kind of like that, where you have your collection and everyone can view it and you can fancy it up and things, hopefully, and stuff like that. So I like the idea of those sorts of features being added into Illuvium Overworld in some way. I don't necessarily think you need like a camera with you or whatever, just a photo mode where you can get rid of the UI and stuff like that would be great. I would love to see a first-person mode, though. That's a topic in itself, and I don't know if anyone suggested that yet, but I would love to see a first-person mode. I don't know why that doesn't exist. Maybe it's something to do with the movement mechanics. I don't know. So that one was by Moors. This one is by Smee. Okay. I'm not going to read all this. Problem, the ranger is your main hero. Make your ranger armaments more relevant in overworld battles. Make a penalty when your ranger dies in battle. Decrease the dimensional stability by 30. Okay, I like that. Where your ranger is more important than all your other alluvials and you should be punished accordingly. I think that's a really neat idea. At the same time, they don't really have alluvial healing, alluvial fainting and stuff in the beta yet. So I feel like a lot of these features are coming and are going to be involved when the main game comes out. So it might not be something we have to worry about just yet. You can see I'm getting shorter with these because I'm getting tired. Overworld fun messaging system. Oh, right. This is cool. I haven't seen this one. I wish I saw this one. So Ramza posts this one and says, have you ever played Dark Souls or Elden Ring? If you could leave messages on the floors and walls for players in those games, maybe even use the same system. It said you can choose to combine words from a list and limited options, things like that. I think this would be great. I know that there is actually going to be an in-game chat system, so not necessarily PvP where you're running around with everyone, but there's going to be like a world chat or other chats and things like that in the bottom left-hand corner or wherever it is, where you can just type in all chat and stuff like that. It's not the same as this, but it's definitely it's in a similar vein, right? But I love this sort of system. I love Elden Ring and all the Souls games, so obviously I'm for it. Social Daily Arena Challenge. This is interesting. So this is by Mark. Can we have a mode where you can collaborate with others, like 3 to 5 to form a deck that can then be used to place on the Wave Challenge? Interesting. You can meet up in Arena Challenge and choose 5 cards to be used part of the deck. So I'm not exactly sure what they're proposing here. It's, from what I'm reading here, it sounds like you and a bunch of others are essentially trying to create a deck for others to face in the survival mode or in some special game mode that he's calling the Daily Arena Challenge. I really like that idea as a concept where you can submit your own decks to be placed on the board to make everyone else's lives more difficult. I also like the idea of your actual NFTs being resident in the survival mode. I talked about this a long time ago, and I think it's a really cool idea if they want to do it. But essentially, you would garrison your Illuvials inside the survival mode, and if they beat someone, then you get some sort of reward out of that. Now, I don't know how the reward system would look like, and there's lots of ways you can turn it to a closed loop, but I think that'd be a really cool idea. So I'm not sure exactly what Mark's trying to get at, but something along the lines of organizing AI decks for opponents. And at least there's a really easy way to add PvP into the overworld without really adding PvP. I think there's a lot of potential here for sure. Voice lines between Arlen and Mozart. This is really funny. Another way to give more life and character to the game, if Arlen would make little quips to Mozart when scanning, I'm sure they're going to exist. I am sure they're going to exist. It is a little bit surprising they don't exist yet. Actually, one thing Undead Blocks does really well, they have a lot of crypto-based puns. Things like, oh, damn, I forgot to stake my ETH and that sort of stuff. I'd love to see that sort of thing in the game. That's not necessarily going to happen. Probably not because of the law, but that would be fun. Okay, so Twitter Army. I have no idea what this one's about. This one's by Nkia. The previous one was by Figment. Rich, yeah, he's tagged a bunch of people. It could be a good idea to remind the community that it's time to raid every tweet of Illuvium. Okay, this is a marketing idea. I don't know how this got in there. I was only doing game ideas. I don't know how that got in there. Okay, community made battle boards. I think it would be, this is by Spleekazor. I think it would be cool to have some way to make community made gameplay content where you could play with your Illuvials, basically like Warcraft 3 and Counter-Strike. Yeah, so this is a really good idea, and I would love to see something like this. It's really hard on a crypto game where there are real assets with real value being involved, but something like the StarCraft 2 arcade ecosystem where people could basically mod the crap out of StarCraft 2 and build all of their own custom game modes. I have so many ideas, and I would absolutely go out of my way to hire as many people as I could to just build certain ideas I had and things like that. As a revenue generation for individuals and the DAO itself, there's a lot of potential there as well. I really like the idea of something like this, but it's a lot of work to... Building a game is one thing. Building a game builder is another thing in itself, right? Okay. So, Illuvium Zero land connector idea. This is interesting. So by Beerami, I'll have my camera for that one. I don't know how it would affect the economic side of things, but a good idea to stream, good stream for the game to sell game connectors. The hell? Oh, okay. So essentially what Beerami is asking here is to create megacities without actually creating megacities. I feel like this would disadvantage those that worked so hard to get their megacity. But if you put a really high price on it, like give me 100 grand and you can link up all your lands to form a megacity, that'd be interesting. But at the same time, it kind of defeats the purpose of the land sale itself and all the land plots being sold, and there are future land sales as well. So there's a lot to consider there. I think there's definitely maybe some sort of thing that you can equip that's relatively expensive, that's like you get kind of like the 20% of the benefits of a megacity or something like that. That could be a really neat idea. There's a lot to unpack there. Okay, overall idea. This one is by Morelio. Add a way to quick swap the character equipment and also the drone equipment at Overworld. Yes. There's not much more to say on that. There's a lot of quality of life improvements that could go into Illuvium Overworld, and I think the team already knows about them. So I'd wait to see what they come up with first, to be honest. So the next one is by Paz. And he says, it would be crazy to be able to extract Illuvium gameplay in a 360-degree camera format. This could be used for 360-degree YouTube streams and videos. I've never seen a 360-degree video. Do we dare watch it right now? I didn't know that was a thing. Did anyone else know that was a thing? Leave a comment down below if you knew that was a thing. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I'm going to mute it. I don't think it's going to pop up anyways. All right. Whoa. This is insane. How did they create this? All right, I kind of broke it, I guess. But that's really cool. I didn't know that was a thing. It's got 2.4 million subscribers, and all they do is release these videos. I mean, that doesn't shock me. That's wild. You can see everything. It's really funny. You can, like, you know, like a Call of Duty context, you probably see someone sneaking up behind them and stuff. All right, I really like that idea, Paz. I don't know how hard that is to do, so I'm not going to talk about it at length, but yeah, I mean, that'd be great. I'd be cool for it. All right, the next one, Overworld mining feature. So this is by the Don 2. So notice everyone likes to flex what they got in a run, especially the shards. So why not put a skill factor to the run haul? When mining deposits, there should be a function that replaces the extracting bar. The extracting bar will be a gradient in green, yellow, and red, back to yellow and then green. I don't know what that is. Oh, so it's like a mini game. So you can like click on the, you got one of those like sliding bars back and forward. You try and click it in the green zone and then you get more shards out of it. I like the idea of continuing to gamify the game. I don't know if this is necessarily the best way to do it. I already think there's a lot of strategy with the drone equipment, things like that. But you never know. Maybe you come from a certain side of the shard and then you could get better stuff. And the better you know the game, the better you can understand this sort of thing. But there's definitely ways to further gamify the game, but you obviously don't want to overcomplicate it, especially since it's opening a pack of cards. And you want to limit RNG as well. So, okay. New type of overworld boots. Interesting. So this one is by Slekwich. I don't know how to pronounce that. The previous one was the Don. I realized that I'm not sprinting at all when farming in Overworld and Crimson Waste. I'm waiting until the energy goes up to use jetpack mag boots again. Maybe it's just me. I thought about creating a new type of shoes where you charge some energy when sprinting. That's pretty cool. Making them sprint a bit faster with a Supreme version. Yeah. There's a few things like that where things like running is pretty much useless in the game, and adding a functionality to that is not necessarily the solution. But I definitely think there's a lot to do with that sort of thing inside Illuvium that needs improving. As well as like the movement's really great, but again, it kind of defeats the purpose of sprinting, and maybe they'll make that more punishing and sprinting will be more useful. Or the other terrain in different regions will require more sprinting just because of the way the terrain's set up. So I think there's a bit to unpack there. Oh my god, how am I not done? All right, let's keep going. Climate seasons in the overworld. Yes, this is a must. So Botch posted this one. Getting bored after he found what he liked to harvest. Plants could grow and die, caves could collapse, acid water could have revealed a new layer underneath. Yeah, the idea of the Illuvium overworld being a living, breathing entity, which it really feels like at the moment, especially with the dynamics of the plants and everything like that, them taking the next step where it feels like a living, breathing organism, especially over long periods of time, as Bot suggests, like 3-month period of time, that would be a really cool way to explore this environment. I don't know how difficult that is to do. I think I even suggested it here that there might be really simple ways to do things like this. Things like snow, and I believe inside the engine there are ways to be like, oh yeah, this layer of snow and the snowflakes come down and things like that. And rain is probably a pretty simple one. And maybe even how strong the sandstorms are in Crimson Waste can change in different seasons of the year. So I think that there's a lot of ways to incorporate things like this simply, and it could add a whole lot to the game. I don't doubt that for a second. All right, so the next one is Toruk who says limited edition dark hollow plushies with gated access. I don't even need to read this to know what it's like. But it sounds like basically if you capture a dark hollow or a hollow, then you can only purchase that dark hollow plushie. I think that's a lot. I think it's a bit extreme considering how rare they could be. I still like the idea though, not gonna lie. The plushies might be worth it more than the NFTs. Alright, the next one. Multiplayer overworld game mode. Alright, there's a lot here. Extraction game mode. That's a cool idea. I'm already liking this. We're off to a good start. Let's keep going. Alright, people spawn in the overworld gathering resources. If you come across someone, you can kill them and steal their loot. I'm already sold. Obviously, we can't do it before open beta or anything like that, but in the future, I would like to see PvP elements like this added for sure. Co-op gathering, where it's just more fun to see other people roaming around. And he says he loves the overworld beta and things like that. But yeah, even co-op would be a fantastic add-on, but I love the idea of coming across another ranger, taking them out and taking all their loot. Yeah, obviously you'd have to opt in. I definitely wouldn't want to force this on anyone, but I like it. I like it. All right. This one is by Super, and it talks about a future Illuvium game mode, 5v5. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not reading all that. If anyone wants to read that, this one looks really cool, really thought out. Quite a few comments too. I'll try and read some of it. The Thrill, first time playing card game. Five v five game mode. I don't know what the 5v5 game mode is. He talks a lot about what Overworld is missing, but hasn't really discussed a 5v5 game mode. Maybe it's just like a shoot 'em up. No, I don't quite get it. Oh wait, hold on. The future game mode. So here it is. So 5v5 PvP multiplayer, what's more thrilling than the ability to control your losers and get into the battlefield and rampage against the enemy? Idea goes something like this. Other players get a total grasp. After players get a grasp of everything, where Team A and Team B rampage all throughout the Illuvium battle land, which is a simple square map. Sounds like a MOBA. Both teams will start to harvest something in the land to gain abilities and begin attacking the team. Oh, so it's not just a MOBA. It's created a whole new game mode. I think it's based off a MOBA. Yeah, it's really interesting. So yeah, definitely give that a read if you have the time. It's from Super. We'll jump on to the next one. So idea to have less multi-accounts. Encourage one account usage from Pizza's life. ID verification, two-way verification, so on and so forth. Essentially, he's got a pretty stern fear of bots coming in and just destroying the ecosystem and the game in general, and a lot of KYC and things to prevent a lot of that malicious activity. I feel like the game already does a really good job of preventing that, and I don't necessarily want to force anyone into KYC, but if we do start to see some bad actors, I would be for seeing action happen. Not necessarily to this extent, but I would definitely be for seeing it taken to the next level and seeing what we can do to prevent it, because I think that will be an urgent matter. And if I was still a council member at that time, then yeah, definitely. I'd definitely look into that. Non-player character Fallen Rangers from Christian J, and an enemy NPC you might encounter while roaming around. We call them the Fallen Ranger, and they'll hunt us while we're looking for resources. I actually really, really like this one as an idea of adding some urgency to the Illuvium overworld without adding PvP and just adding an NPC that chases you around. I think it's really fascinating, especially if he gets up in like wacky places, starts shooting at you, and you're like, oh crap, he's shooting at me, what am I going to do? I like the idea of it adding urgency. I don't want it to be too difficult, and I like the idea of players saying they do or don't want that involved in their game, and maybe they get better rewards if they say, yes, I do want it. But I like the idea of adding urgency this way. I think it's a great idea, to be honest, so good job, Kristen J. So alternative ranger missions or excursions. I covered this one before. This one talks a little bit more specifically about the land game and how it factors into this sort of stuff, as we're talking about with the missions that you can send things out on. This actually got quite a bit of positive feedback, so I might have to talk about this even further as we keep going. But yeah, this is a strong idea here, and if you want to read up on Josh's idea, he usually has pretty good ideas, to be honest. If you want to read up on this idea and the whole discussion, it's actually a really good read. So I recommend reading back through this one. But yeah, essentially, you can send out Mozart or your ranger or whatever from your land, and then it can gather some resources, not very much at all, daily limits, all the rest of it, and you can kind of passively generate some of your overworld resources that way. Very small amounts, but you can do it. All right. Merch's advertisement, again, marketing idea, and board skins. We're back. We've already had this one. So yeah, wow. That really took it out of me. This is one of my longest like non-stream videos ever. So let's put it that way. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys thought some of the ideas were cool. Let me know your favorite idea down in the comments. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. Have a good day, everyone.